Hi, I'm the academic astrologer, and I'm here to talk to you today about endometriosis. Since last month was Endometriosis Awareness Month, it was all over my feed constantly in my face. And so I went back to the book Fertility Astrology to see what it might have said about endometriosis. And to preface this, I should always say that astrology does not diagnose things medically. It shows patterns. I read those patterns, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a health professional, and you should always seek professional health opinions from a professional practitioner. So just putting that out there to preface this. But I went back through the book Fertility Astrology to see what it had to say about endometriosis. And one thing that it pointed out is that Saturn, Pluto, hard aspects, and Libra might be at play. Now, I think she worked with a lot of people a number of years ago, so they may have had things in their charts that people now who are trying to get pregnant don't have. But anyways, I noted that. She also mentioned she was looking at someone's chart, and she said that the uterus is indicated by the first house, and she said the ruler of their first house was Mars, and it was opposite Pluto. And she said this may be a pattern indicated of endo in the person. So, I mean, she's not sure they have endo. She's not diagnosing endo, but she's just saying this pattern looks like someone who might have endo. She also mentioned that Sagittarius moons might have a tendency towards endo because the Sagittarius likes to wander, and so the tissue might like to wander outside of the womb. She also mentioned that Moon Pluto may have a correlation. And so what's interesting is I was actually looking at a chart of someone who had endo, and they had Pluto in the 5th house, Scorpio, and it was closely opposite Mars in the 11th, and it was loosely conjunct the moon. So I thought that was really interesting. And there may have been some other factors in their chart as well. And there was a small research study that was done which found things that might be 3 times more likely to show endo in someone's chart. And those things that they found was that retrograde Jupiter was the 5th house lord, retrograde Saturn was afflicting the 5th house, or a 5th house lord. But overall, I just want to say there is no fixed endo pattern. There may be different factors that might show a possibility of endo, but astrology doesn't diagnose problems. It just shows possibilities, imbalances, patterns. But the fascinating thing is that in the research that I've done so far, so twins can actually, so that theoretically they have the same birth chart, maybe like slightly different, but not enough to change their ascendant. So they have like almost the same birth chart, and yet they lead completely different lives, or very different lives. So to me, that's fascinating because the birth chart gives us our lot in life, but then there's certain choices that we make, certain people that we come into contact with that might have a different outcome, so that even a twin can have their birth chart show differently in their life. I thought that was interesting because, you know, some people may have physical manifestations, some people might have psychological manifestations. It might be a one-time event, it may be a recurrent event in their life. So it can manifest in all different sorts of different ways. I also went through a review of It Starts With the Egg book to see what she's had to say about endo. And again, another reminder, not a health practitioner. You should always seek your doctor before diagnosing yourself with something or starting a new supplement routine. But she said that poor egg quality unites endo with other conditions. So in other words, a lot of things that other conditions might, the outcome of the other conditions might be poor egg quality. And endo is another condition that might cause poor egg quality, which of course can affect fertility. She said it's really important to minimize toxins, phthalates, and go with her advanced plan that she talks about in her book. Antioxidants are super important. You need to regulate the immune system. And so she said, sometimes it's recommended that even up to a blood level of 60 mgs per milliliter of vitamin D might be recommended. And you may need 5,000 to 6,000 IUs per day to get up to that amount. And it always is very important to test for vitamin D. You don't want to just start supplementing just by yourself, not talking to your doctor, because you can get too much of it. So you do want to be in contact with your doctor about your vitamin D levels. She also mentioned that endo causes higher oxidative damage. Melatonin can help sleep and pain in endo. Vitamin E is particularly important. Vitamin C, because of the oxidative damage. Our alpha lipoic acid might help with the inflammation. And you want to protect mitochondrial function. And this is, again, important across many different issues that might cause egg quality issues. NAC is particularly helpful, and it may help reduce pain and help with egg quality. One supplement they said to avoid was turmeric. It may be helpful for endo, but it's not necessarily helpful in really high doses for fertility. And food doses are, of course, okay. Those are okay. But we're talking about like taking a major amount of turmeric is probably not helpful for fertility. Physonigenol, or pine bark, may help reduce endo pain, but it could be counterproductive for fertility. Endo is a hindrance to fertility because of the inflammation and the oxidative damage to developing eggs. And so Rebecca in her book says that research shows that you might be able to counteract with the right supplements. And so she has an actual suggested endo plan in her book, and it talks about a prenatal with natural food folate or menthol folate, CoQ10, our alpha lipoic acid, NAC, vitamin C, melatonin, vitamin D if your lab suggests that, B12 if your lab suggests that, and an omega-3 supplement. She also talks about diet being particularly important with endo, so it may be best to avoid gluten and dairy, reduce sugar, anti-inflammatory veggies, healthy fats such as fish and olive oil. And she also mentions that if you think you might have endo but you haven't been diagnosed with it, you might want to check out the Receptiva DX test. She says it looks really promising. And of course, because supplements can interact with conditions and medications, it's always important to review any changes with a qualified practitioner, which is not me, someone on the internet. So again, I'm the academic astrologer, and if you'd like to book a fertility reading, you can find me at theacademicastrologer.com. Thanks and have a great day.